Welcome to Living Free in Tennessee, where we talk about going live on Instagram, and it's not freaking working. Click. There we go. Okay, we're going to start over, guys. Give me 1 second. Welcome to Living Free in Tennessee, where we talk about building the life you choose on your terms. Today is Friday, February 23rd, 2024.
Yes.
Yeah, and this is episode 869 of Living Free in Tennessee. 69, dude! You thought it, didn't you? He won't admit it. Where's your mic? Okay, cool. Can you guys hear Tactical?
I don't know.
I'm asking them, not you. Say something.
I just did.
Say something louder.
Well, the point is to ask them if they can hear me when I talk in my normal tone
That's
of
not your normal
voice.
tone. Anytime you tell me a story about anything you're doing on the Homestead without a microphone, you are actually louder than you just were when you said, oh.
Well, that also is normally because I'm halfway across the room from you and I'm talking loud so you can hear me.
Okay, pretend like you're halfway across the room from me all the time.
Oh.
All right, guys, you can hear me. Do me a favor, let folks know that we're live. If you're on the live stream, I want to tell you what we're talking about today. Oh, yeah, and if you have questions, guys, I don't have this up on my TV because that technology is not working well yet. I will figure it out. But you need to put the word question in all caps for me to know that you want me to see your question, because you are way over there and the font is small, and even with my glasses, hard to see. So anyway, today we're going to talk about rabbit poop. We're going to talk about rabbit poop systems. We're going to talk about the sheep hay sled and more on electric fences and building community and a whole bunch of other stuff. Of course, those of you in the live stream, if you have questions, you can always get your questions in. As I said, put the first word question in all caps. If you are listening to the audio podcast and you ever have a question about homesteading or what we're doing or anything you want to hear a story about, send me an email, Nicole@livingfreeintennessee.com, or go to livingfreeintennessee.com, click on contact, and those emails come to me. Before we dive into the vast list of content I have, I want to talk about our LFTN events calendar. Letty has really stepped in to help me get the submissions to the LFTN events calendar up on the website. So if you're interested in what's going on around the network, you can check it out, livingfreeintennessee.com/events. At the very top of the page before you see the calendar is a button that says submit an event. So if you have an event you want on there, fill out that form. People who forward me PDFs and images that tell me about their event don't get on this, because I have to hand type out all the words on it. I can't cut and paste. So we created a form to get the pieces of information we need from you to do your event posting. And that's over at livingfreeintennessee.com/events. Today, I wanted to do our featured event of today's show, which I took from that calendar. And it is the Self-Reliance Through Permaculture session that Ryan Steva is going to do on March 2nd in Crossville. It's $25. If you want to check that out, the link is in the show notes, or go to livingfreeintennessee.com/event/self-reliance through permaculture with hyphens between the words. Or if you just go to the event calendar, it's like literally you can just see the list and you can click on it and it works great. Okay. I also want to talk about our two sponsors of today's show. The first one is discountmylarbags.com. I just saw a post yesterday from Dawn Gorham of Gorham Homestead, and she had freeze-dried some bananas as snacks, and she vacuum sealed them in mason jars, and she's putting those on the shelf. And she said this: I'm vacuum sealing these in mason jars because I'm going to use them up in the next year or so. And then my next batch I'm doing for long-term storage in what?
Mylar bags.
Mylar bags. Discount Mylar Bags is run by one of us from our network, and his name is Toby, and he passes on his value that he gets by sourcing things in bulk onto you so that you don't have to pay higher prices than you need to. Discountmylarbags.com is where you go to get those. There is a discount if you're a Living Free in Tennessee member. And you know what's even better? He has resources on how to size your bags and your O2 absorbers so you get the right thing for your uses. That's at discountmylarbags.com. Our second sponsor of today's show is this. Early bird prices are almost out of here for Self-Reliance Festival and any of the early bird pricing on the pre-event workshops. So head over to selfreliancefestival.com and definitely get your tickets soon if you're going to come, because after March 1st, prices go up. It's going to be a really fantastic event, a great way to meet people. We had a really fun live stream last night with the vendors, and we ended up talking about community more than what they were doing. So that's over at selfreliancefestival.com. Now, I have a new segment today. Do you know what it is?
No.
Do you know what it is now that you glanced at my notes?
No, I can't read your notes from here.
Really? Do you need glasses?
No, it's the angle.
It's the angle? Okay. I got a lot of listener feedback in the last couple weeks. And I've, like way back when I started the podcast, I would do a listener feedback show from time to time, and I was only doing one show a week. So like I'd do one about every 6 weeks, and that was cool. I thought rather than reply to these emails in email, I would read them on today's show.
Cool.
So first one comes from Jesse, and the subject is I got started. He did not write that subject. I wrote that subject, by the way. Now all he said is, I've been a listener for a couple years, and between you and Tim, I finally started a business. Way to go, Jesse. High five for Jesse. Still getting things moving, but I used Joshua at getahostnow.com, and he was great at getting me off the ground with the website. I'm still building it now. Guys, you can pay him to build your website, or you can build your own website. And if websites are not your number one thing, it's not necessarily a bad idea to pay somebody like Joshua to build your first website so that things get handled. The deal is you need to give them the content to put on your website, because website developers don't write your words for you. So just that's putting that caveat. Like if you go in and you're like, this is what I want on my website, they will build it so fast. It's amazing. Anyway, thank you for being an inspiration for those that want to be free. Jesse, good for you for getting your business started. What is it? Just curious.
Yeah, that's my question is like, okay, what do I get to buy?
Yeah. So anyway, when your website's done, maybe you should send me another email and we could talk about your website. Second one, this is great. So we talked about the rabbit mistake that somebody made that I'm still a little soul hurt about.
Okay.
Are you soul hurt about it at all?
No.
Okay. That doe was throwing 12 kit litters though. So she was my best doe.
Okay.
So we're going to tattoo rabbits. What do you think about that?
Okay.
Okay. So I talked about tattooing rabbits. I've never tattooed rabbits before, and I got a really great email about it.
Okay.
So this is it. You probably know this already, but I thought I would share my experience tattooing rabbits. No, I don't have any experience tattooing rabbits. So thank you for sending this email. Yes, I have been homesteading for about 17 years. No, I don't know everything in the world. It's impossible to know everything in the world. Anyway, if you can get tattoo paste, black is best in my opinion. That works so much better than other options. So here is what I did. Clean the left ear. Use a towel over the head to prevent bites and scratches. That's a very good tip because rabbits have very sharp claws.
Yes.
A lot easier with 2 people. We're going to do this with 2 people. But otherwise, hold your arm with the rabbit head and your elbow. No, we're going to do it with 2 people. Yep. Taking that advice. So clamp. So you clamp down, I guess, to puncture the skin with the rabbit ear tattooer. Wipe away any blood. Smear the tattoo cream on there. Smear and press tattoo paste into the holes. Wipe off excess with a slightly damp cloth and check to make sure color is in every hole. Sound like we can do that?
Yeah.
Okay. With characters, we put the number of the year as last character. So for 2024, we put 4 at the end, and the first digit of which doe it came from. So a doe named Aphrodite, for example, would get all of her descendants starting with an A. So that would be A4. Makes sense? And then whatever. So that's how you keep track of who screwed who and who should mate with who. So that's very helpful information. So what I got from that is not necessarily do this system, but do a system where you can kind of include the parentage in the tattoo. I'd highly recommend starting pedigree so you can avoid too much incest. The does will become too dumb to kick care babies or become vicious or do other dumb things. Hope this helps. Also, did you get my email about the recirculation pump to help with frozen pipes in your house? Take care, Kelsey. Kelsey, I did get that other email. and I meant to respond to it and didn't. And that was before I was doing inbox 0 the way I am now. But a recirculation pump is actually under consideration for a couple of places. It's a little lower on our priority list because Tennessee doesn't freeze the way it did this year as much. But it is something that he and I will talk about when we redo the pump house and some other things. So thank you for that email as well. Okay. I have different color for each dad. Yeah, that would be good. Or you put the first letter of the dad, right? So right now our dads are white rabbit and black rabbit.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how we do that. And the white rabbit throws the most interesting, like beige colored kits when it mates with the black female. So we've had some pretty cool looking rabbits.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, parallel fence and power lines especially can interfere with your circuit. This is from Pack Rat, and he sent a link, and he CC'd Tactical on this because he knew that Tactical needed to know this. So it might be possible in an edge case situation like that the grounding rods and salt could combine to form cupric oxide diodes around the grounding rods, which would rectify the voltage into the ground, passing DC voltage in one direction and passing it in the other. Disclaimer, I'm not an electrical engineer. I'm a liberal arts grad. Math is a distant second language. Sorry about the sheep. That's rough. Something to look forward to, not at the time we get animals in our place. Best Pack Rat. So that was just some feedback on the electric fence.
Yeah. I like the part about not being an electrical engineer, because technically 737s can't fly because Orville and Wilbur Wright weren't aeronautical engineers.
Uh-huh.
So that means planes can't fly.
So any update on the fence at this point?
It's working. As best I can tell, there's a weird issue with when I put the fault finder on, and I think it's because it's under the high voltage line. So I'm kind of waiting until I get them out from underneath of the power lines to really dig in and go.
Yeah, we're not
hard.
even, we think maybe the high voltage power lines might be interfering.
Yeah.
And that's something to think about, location of paddocks.
Yeah.
Okay. So while we're on listener feedback, back in December, while my house was ripped to pieces, Porterhouse sent me this handmade soap. So that's from the Porterhouse and Teal channel. Porterhouse is coming to my spring workshop to speak. It smells delicious, and you're just gonna have to trust me on this because you apparently can't smell. How does it feel in your hand?
Feels nice.
He's not the best smeller in the world.
I mean, I can kind of smell something which says something, and I mean, it's not an unpleasant smell, so I actually want to try that. And I hate bar soap.
So I love handmade bar soap, and Porterhouse sent this to me to just tell him what I think of it. But they're making this out of with Hollow Roast coffee, and some other smells are combined in there. It smells kind of like a coffee store meta soap store to me. So it smells delicious. And what I like about it is it doesn't have the grits of coffee in it. Like it has some texture, and people put grits of coffee in that to exfoliate. But what that happens in my clawfoot tub ends up making it harder to clean because I have to get the coffee grounds to go down the drain. So I actually prefer the coffee soap like this. It smells. So definitely, I don't know if it's for sale over at their website yet, but if it is, like give them an order and get your Hollow Roast soap, because I think that's a really good product. We've got a number of people in the network who do soaps, and I have not bought commercial soap in a long time. We'll just say that.
Yeah.
Like years.
Speaking as a mechanic, the finer coffee ground stuff is better because, like, I hate Gojo because it's too grainy.
Yeah.
It's just unpleasant, and it doesn't provide that much of a benefit.
Right. Okay. So here's what I found out in the forage on the property. We've got dandelion greens coming up, and that means we can eat them in salads, but we have not eaten them in salads yet. I might get some harvested this weekend. We'll see. I'm doing the trapping class tomorrow, so I expect to be kind of tired from that, and I've been fighting a cold. Hello, 30-day reviews. Chickweed is up, and dead nettle is up. and wild garlic is up. And yesterday, I needed more onions because I didn't stock onions the way I usually do due to the construction chaos. And I was like, but hey, dude, if you're too tired, whatever, I've got green onions in the aquaponics system and there's wild onions growing out in the yard. So there's a different way to get an aromatic into cooking if I run out of onions. But next year, I'm planting onions this year again, and we'll see how they go. They're not my primary objective new plant to do well with, but I got some onions last year. They just didn't I don't think the ground was well enough formed in that bed. So I think they were growing in clay and having a hard time. So this year we'll see if we get bigger onions, better onions, more onions. Because our goal, I am garlic self-reliant and I want to be onion self-reliant as well, long term. That's my goal. So that's what we're finding out about. And then the cool thing about that is if you are not onion self-reliant, nature provides in many regions in the US, there are things that grow that can add an aromatic flavor to your foods that sort of bumps it up. And you can just use garlic instead of onions if you're garlic independent like we are. So, lots of ways to do it. Next up, we're talking about livestock. How's the lambing going?
Still no babies. I think I don't know. Doesn't look like anybody's imminent, but the other day it did, and it was I don't know.
According to the calendar, they're due between March 1st and March 20th.
Okay.
So we're getting closer to March 1st. March 1st is next Friday. So we'll just see. And if you get lambs on March 1st, that means the day that everybody got together is the day that that happened.
With Timmy, that wouldn't surprise me.
Well, so what can happen though, is they're not really fertile that day when the deal is closed. And then, but that being around the rams triggers estrus. And then within a couple of weeks, they go into estrus and then they actually get pregnant. So it's all about timing, if you know how that process works, which many of us do know how that process works. How's duck jail going?
With the khakis, it's fine. I did not actually go in to check for eggs this morning because I was trying to get a bunch of other stuff done, so I forgot to go actually in there. But of course, the muscovies, as soon as you let them out, just go straight up and over the fence.
Yeah, so we have 3 muscovies that are basically pet muscovies at this point, not giving us eggs or babies.
Yeah.
So we need to think about that.
Yeah.
But what I mean by think about that is they either need to be at this time of year somehow enclosed that they can't go hide their eggs everywhere, or we need to reset the muscovy population. So we'll decide what to do. But the khaki Campbells don't fly over the fence. Did anybody fly over the fence yesterday?
No.
Okay.
None of the khakis did.
So the khakis are in jail, and the reason they're in jail is we're getting 2 eggs a day. And we know that they are of egg-giving life and that they are getting enough protein. And I'm pretty sure they're hiding their eggs in nests out on the property, which khaki Campbells will do. So we're trying to retrain them on the coop. In advance of doing this, we scooped out the coop, put in fresh wood chips, and I needed to change the duck litter process. So for years, I have done duck litter so that the deep litter method, so that we can easily have a low smell, low disease situation for the ducks. It starts composting in there. We move it out, finish composting it, and put it out in the yard and use it for fertility once or twice a year. It's twice a year that we have to scoop the coop, right?
Usually, yeah.
Yeah, so it's been really great. And up until the last year and a half, we had ducks and chickens together. And there were 3 or 4 chickens. There weren't a lot of chickens because I prefer duck eggs. Well, we're down to 1 hen from that group who gives a green egg every once in a while because she's so
every
old.
6 months.
We thought she was going to die 2 years ago, but here she is.
Yeah.
She's she just hangs out. She likes ducks. She follows you around. She won't let you pick her up. But anyway, what I realized about the deep litter method with ducks and no chickens is that chickens, you have to do the work of the chicken if you don't have chickens. And the work of the chicken is that they scratch. Like the reason I don't want free range chickens here, and the reason we have the deep mulching system for the chickens that we have started elsewhere on the property, is they were scratching up places I didn't want them to scratch up. And my choice was to close them out of those places, which then led to a barricade of hurdles that we had to walk over to get to anything, which made it harder to maintain things that we wanted to maintain. And so I was like, well, screw it. We just won't have chickens anymore. And I stopped replacing chickens. So the chickens were scratching in the duck coop to mix in any poop with the sawdust.
Yeah.
So what we were getting is, so the problem is ducks' feet are flat and webbed, and they poop, and then they tamp it in, and you end up with duck poop cake, right?
Well, like layered cake.
Yeah, layered duck and sawdust cake. And so what I've been doing this week that Tactical doesn't know I've been doing is choking on my coffee. Woo. Can you say something?
You shouldn't do that.
Yeah. So I've been walking down to the duck coop every day or two with a rake and roughing up the areas where they poop the most that are starting to cake, and then throwing more sawdust over it by the handful rather than a lot at once. When I had the chickens once a week, I could go in and put some wood chips in and they'd scratch it all in and it worked. So that's worked really well so far. And the reason this relates to duck jail is that they're more likely to lay in the coop when there's a way they can nest in the coop. And if they have duck poop cake, they won't do that. So now they have places where the litter is totally fluffy, and then it's a great place to lay an egg. So that's what we're doing. You just didn't know I was doing that, did you?
No.
No, he had no idea. He was over at the sheep when I was doing that, and I was like,
Probably.
I have 10 minutes before my next call. I'm going to run down to the duck coop and go scritcha, 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 and then back up. I do 15-minute homestead projects, and that's totally one of them. So the other thing is Tactical made a new duck feeder. I put a post out about it on Facebook where he used 1x6s, and it's something they can't kick over in their clumsy duck way because of how he did it. There's a picture on Facebook, but it's like 1x6 and a bottom and sides, so it's sort of like a hatch, like hashtag, but a long hashtag shape. And then we put only enough duck feed in there to be maybe 3/4 of an inch, just a few scoops. And there's a long side that they have to reach their head over, and the duck feed waste has gone way down.
Yeah, the only thing that I would change about that is I would not have made it as wide, because apparently they can actually get in that trough.
Okay. So the good news was it kept the poop out, and I posted about how awesome it was that it kept the poop out, and then it didn't keep the poop out because somebody figured out they could get up in there.
Yeah.
So that's true. But, mostly they don't get up in there.
Yeah, for the most part they don't, but it's usually when the onslaught of everybody runs into the coop, one of them usually ends up in the trough because he can't get up to the side of it, so he just goes up and over everybody and into the trough so that one can get access to some food.
Yeah. We do need to click some drakes.
Yes.
Yeah, so that'll be next. We got through all of the roosters, and then we do need to kill some drakes next. I'm not planning to feed those to dogs. I'd like to make those into duck stew.
Agreed.
So we'll just skin them instead of pluck them.
That's fine.
That means the plucker can go away.
I prefer duck over chicken.
Yes, don't we all? So that's worked pretty well. So we'll actually, are you going to try to make another duck feeder that's narrower?
Not presently.
Not presently. We should do that experiment. I might actually do that experiment for fun, just to see if we fix the duck getting in there and pooping issue. Because I was all excited, like there's not even poop in it. And then 3 days after that post, I'm like, well, there's poop in it. And now I know why. I thought the chicken just, like, because there's one chicken, she got in there somehow.
No, the one yard chicken that's left sometimes will like fight for a little bit of food, but half the time she just goes straight up into the rafters.
Yeah, but it's under the rafters still, right?
Kind of, but it's not under where she usually sits on
Yeah.
the rafter.
So that's the key. If you have chickens roosting and you put things under where chickens roost, you will get poop on whatever you put under that. And I know that sounds like not rocket science, but sometimes it's not, like, you don't think about it until you're like, well, OSSHIT, literally. I put that
Yeah.
there. That was a bad idea. That's chickens, though. So I've got a comment here. I need to make some 15-minute project list. You absolutely do. I actually need to finish the organizing our lives board over there, or over, I might put it over here because it's easier to hang over here, where we have our calendar and we have our weekly meeting on Sunday where we talk about what we're doing and put important appointments on it and have some goals of homestead projects we want to move forward on. But having a list of 15 or 20-minute projects to get done makes it so you can take that little space of time when you get it here and there. Because a lot of times on the homestead, there'll be a big project. Like the duck coop took him 4 hours, I think.
That sounds
About right. 4 hours. He did it by himself. It would have been way better if I would have helped him, but he did it by himself. The project took 4 hours, and then it wasn't dinner time yet. So, of course, after a project like that, the 20-minute project he probably wanted to do was take a shower, which is totally legitimate. But let's pretend you weren't covered in litter from the duck coop and you had half an hour till dinner. You can look at the list of 15-minute projects because you still want to do something, and go knock something out that's small. And that's how I've been getting ahead on trimming my trees and getting the food forest ready for strawberry transplants and other things. And it's been great because in the actual food forest, the oregano's doing great. Like, I think if I had asked somebody to help me work on those and weed them or whatnot, they would have not have realized that this annoying weed ground cover that's there is not annoying weed ground cover. It's oregano, which is what I want in the food forest. I want the oregano to push out the other plants. So anyway, that's a great way to organize your homestead. I also have a question from Angie. Do you then leave the onions to go to seed and collect the seeds to start each year? Angie, so my plan is start by getting good at growing the onions from bulblets. So I'm buying the bulblets from somebody, which means they started at a seed sometime last fall, were nurtured through till there's a bulblet. Bulblet goes in the ground, and then I let it get into a bigger bulblet that is the onion. Now I have Egyptian walking onions, which sell seed that I just let go. And right now, I'm not sure how many we have. We don't have a lot.
I'm not sure what's going to come back in my systems because the freeze.
Yeah, but I think I have some Egyptian walking onion bulblets out there, but if I don't, I can ask friends. And I'm going to get some going again in the upper garden. What's great about Egyptian walking onions is that they walk around. Like, they grow, and if you don't harvest them, they fold over and they reseed, and you end up with more. So that's a really great variety, but they're harder to use than the big round onions. Like, they don't end up as big round onions, but you can eat all the green onion stalk. You can eat the little reseed bulblets, and then it will get into a bigger, like a slightly bigger shallot style bulb at the bottom. The thing about Egyptian walking onions is there's a space between what's underground and the stem that gets very, don't worry about it. It's just a stupid cat being a stupid cat. So they get this one area where if you're having trouble cutting, that is your indication that you should not try to cut, because you'll then end up with this woody, chewy area in the stem. So it's like that transition from the bulb to the green onion part. Need to be careful of that. So that's how I do that with onions. And then once I have mastered getting the small bulblets to go to big onions, I will then work on go from seed to small bulblet as part of the seed growing stuff here, and then take it all the way through. And then I will let it go to seed, collect the seed, and redo onions. That's how I'm approaching it, because, and that's why onions have been a harder nut to crack, because garlic is super easy. You just put the garlic in the ground and it makes more garlic. And then you harvest the garlic and don't eat all the garlic that you harvest, and put the garlic back in the ground and it makes more garlic. And I do have an email in from somebody asking about how I grow garlic. I will do a whole show on that soon. This Monday, I'm going to be talking about getting your garden beds ready at this time of year when it's later than you should have, and what you can do in your garden to get things ready anyway, because that's 100% what we did this year. So, okay, so back to the animals. The LGDs prefer to eat chicken over rabbits, but rabbits are easier to raise and you get more of them for less input.
Yes.
So they're going to have to still eat rabbit. My thought is two things. One, it might do better if instead of giving them whole rabbits, we give them cut rabbits.
Okay.
So the meat is there, but we're not going to do that. I don't want to do that with the ones that are frozen right now.
Yeah.
So maybe in the next batch we'll think about that. And then the other thing is they get rabbits all the time and they don't get chickens all the time.
Yeah. The chickens was a new thing, but it was amusing that you would go over and there would just be like, oh yeah, there was a chicken there. Now it's just a pile of white feathers.
Yeah. So I'm glad they like them. All right, do we have any more chickens to give them?
I think there's 2.
Okay. So great. I need freezer space.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will take 2 over today.
Rabbits or chickens, don't care.
I can take 2 over today.
Yeah. I've got some rabbits in the black upright freezer that are getting to be 6 months old that could go too.
Okay.
So I've been reorganizing the freezers, guys, just to be able to get stuff. So today we're eating short ribs from the beef. And last time I cooked them, we ended up with a lot of bone and fat and almost no meat. And then we had to cook a pizza. Isn't that what happened?
Yeah, that was mostly because of the cut of meat.
It's the same cut of meat.
Okay.
So I did twice the volume and they're in the crock pot low and slow for the day.
Okay.
And last time it was like I put them in the crock pot for half the day and they were still also really hard to bite into.
Yeah, the problem I had with the first round you did was the fat was like just too tough to like you couldn't just separate it.
Yeah. So we've been doing a lot of ribs because I have been putting off cooking ribs. And so now every time I go out to the freezer and I'm like, what do I got to do? It's ribs. And ribs are delicious. That's the funny thing is ribs are not hard to cook and they're delicious. So that's happening. We clipped the wings of some of our chickens. By the wings, I mean 1 wing per chicken, so they can't get over the fence. And it worked for 2 out of 3 that we clipped. And then there were 2 that escaped, which meant that they aren't clipped. And so we still have a problem of the chickens getting over the middle fence. And because of how that fence separator is with a nice roostable piece of wood they can grab on, even the clipped wing chickens can get there. I only bring this up because they're going over the fence, laying eggs in this little barn shelter area, which we currently refer to as the listeria barn, because that's where the ram died. And so any eggs that are laid there are being tossed because I don't even want to risk it. So he's going to go rake out the rest of the hay from there, burn that. I'm going to look and see if I should spray anything or what I should do. I know that heat fixes the problem, but I don't want to have dormant listeria in that basically area where I put animals to separate them, quarantine them from the other animals. Like it's my quarantine barn basically. Yeah. And I don't want to have one problem and then add a second problem. So I need to call the veterinarian to find out if there's anything else I should do to sterilize that. Of course, where he was has been very thoroughly cleaned and we've burned everything, but we just don't want to risk it. So he's going to do that. And then he's going to put fresh hay in the other side of the quarantine barn, which has a fence between it. So, you know, the ram could not get through that, and make it more attractive for chickens to lay there. Of course, they could also lay in their laying boxes, but they don't because poultry doesn't. You can train them by putting fake eggs in there, but, you know, it works and then you have to retrain, and then it works and you have to retrain. And just every so often they decide they want to lay where they want to lay. So it's important to know where they want to lay as part of that project. And that's everything from the livestock. Next, let's talk about grow. What are you growing, dude?
I've got 2 of the 3 peppers that I took cuttings off of last year are still alive.
Woohoo!
One of them looks like it's going to die.
Okay. Is it going to die?
Probably, but at least, you know, I don't know. I didn't like stick a tag on them to see what varieties it was, but I think it was like a jalapeno and an Anaheim that I took cuttings off of.
Was it a Jack's jalapeno or a store jalapeno?
I don't know.
Okay.
No clue on that.
This year I wanted, except for that jalapeno plant, I want to be really purposeful about only growing Jack's jalapenos, if you're up for it.
Okay. Get them started then.
Okay. So I still need to start my seedlings. I'm really glad I got on my podcast and told y'all to get started, and then I didn't get started. So I have made motions towards getting started, but we have not gotten to the part where I put the seeds in the trays. Now, this is later than I would like to start. It's not too late. So this is your reminder. If, like me, you've put it off, it's going to cost you an awful lot of money to buy those plants if you have to buy them at the store. So get your peppers and tomatoes and other things started so that you have a better thing. And if you haven't listened to my episode on seed starting, I think it was the week before last that I did. So check that episode out. If you've never started seeds, try something. Because once you get the skill, kind of like my onion story that I told you, it makes it so that you can save money. And it's actually kind of a fun project to do once you get it started. The reason I haven't started, it's a toolbox fallacy. I need to get I have a set of wire shelves with lights attached to them, and then I put heating mats on them, and it's a whole system. Works great. The reason I haven't started my seedlings is that shelf is not here. And it's literally a 10-minute project to drive my car next door, get the stupid shelf over here, and put the shelf up, and I still haven't done it. So it's gonna happen one way or another.
We might be doing that this afternoon.
We're going to go get wood chips this afternoon.
We might be doing that too this afternoon.
Okay. Anyway, and speaking of which, we're going to go get wood chips this afternoon. Last weekend, it worked so great on Saturday to go get wood chips with two of us scooping. It was a chore, but it didn't feel like an onerous chore, right?
No, and part of that was just the wood chips were a lot better cut this time.
Yeah, so at Wood Chip Mecca, sometimes you end up with wood chips with these long branches in them, or like big pieces of wood that you don't want in your garden. These were all consistently small chips.
Yeah, they were pretty legit.
They were great. And so we did about half my garden with it, which I said on Monday. And tomorrow, because I'm doing the trapping class tomorrow at the Sequatchie school, I was like, but I really want to get another round of wood chips. And it's really sunny outside right now. So this afternoon, we're going to go there, and it's going to be really cool. Speaking of, it's sunny outside. Let's look at the solar system. You want to look at what the solar system's doing? Tell us what happened with the solar system.
Sean came through the other night and updated the firmware on the battery, which is, I just had this conversation yesterday. It's like, normally the fact that the battery has firmware would irritate the ever-living piss out of me, but the reason that this system has it is because the inverter is so star-spangled awesome. You can pre-program it so that, I think right now we have it set up so that if the battery drops to 25%, then the inverter will automatically just start taking power from the grid to recharge the battery.
Right. So we have the best of both worlds. It charges first from the solar panels.
Yeah.
And then second from the grid. But when he's using power, it does not take power from the battery first. It takes power first from the solar panels and then augments from the battery. And then if it has to charge the battery for the grid, it does.
Yeah.
So that means that we're, like at the height of a very sunny day, all of our power needs are being met 100% from the sun. And it comes with this really cool app that tells you what's going on, that I'm holding up to the camera so you can see it. So I can look in anytime to see what's going on that. When the firmware was not up to date, what was happening is the battery was not taking the charge from the solar panel. So right now, sun is hitting the panels. We are generating 586 watts of power. He's using 167 watts. And the other 344 watts are going to charge the battery. This morning when I got up, the battery charge had gone down to the point where it was pulling off the grid. And that's okay because we went in without a lot of backfill on the charge, and it was really cloudy yesterday, so it didn't refill the batteries all that much yesterday. I actually didn't do laundry and didn't want run the dishwasher last night to try to keep us from pulling as much, but today that's totally going to happen. So no, I don't know what gesture makes balloons happen, but every so often I make balloons happen.
Really irritating.
That's okay. So right now the grid's not involved at all. We're charging the battery. It's up to 26%, so it had fallen to the 25% where it has to charge. And then he is getting all of his, like the refrigerator and everything else is being powered, plus our well system is being powered from what's coming with the sun. So as long as the sun stays out, we're good. This also means that I want to get a tree trimmer out here.
Okay.
For the, which tree it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what we have going into the summer is that my Chinese chestnut tree is going to block the sun for a lot of the day if we don't trim it back in that one little area.
Yeah.
And it's a sketchy enough location for the Chinese chestnut that I want help making sure we don't drop any branches on the solar panels. Right?
Yeah, I'm a little more concerned about that shagbark that needs to come the rest of the way down.
Oh, that's not a shagbark. It's a box elder.
No, the shagbark hickory that's split in half.
Oh, I thought that was a box elder.
No, there's another box elder over there that needs to come
Remember the
down.
one that just fell over?
Yeah, that was the shagbark.
Oh, I thought it was a box elder. Anyway, so yeah, that is an issue too. That it hit our rabbitry. That fell on the rabbitry, didn't it?
No, I moved it beforehand.
Okay, cool. Anyway, that's the solar system update, and we're back to the garden update. I know I just kind of got off topic because I saw that it was sunny out, and I'm like, we need to see how this is going. So all the garden beds are in. 3/4 of the food forest is pruned. I want a wood chipper.
Okay.
Do I want a gas wood chipper or an electric one?
I don't know.
I think I want an electric one because I don't want to have to maintain the gas one.
Yeah.
But the problem is the gas ones can go up to like 2 inches or 3 inches. And the electric ones go to 1.5 to 1 3/4 inches big around. So then the option is to rent one to do the things. But if we rent one, we're going to end up with a pile of wood chips that's smaller than a 5-gallon bucket. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to get an electric one or a battery operated one. We'll see. I'm going to go to the hardware store and look at them. But I think we are going to get a wood chipper here for at least the small branches that we're getting off the fodder trees, because otherwise I end up with piles of branches I need to burn, and I'm not stoked about doing that.
I've done pretty good about not having to burn piles of branches.
Yeah, but there's piles of branches everywhere, quote unquote, rotting for 2 years.
Yeah.
I don't love that.
Okay.
Things get in there, and then when I have to walk from one side of that to the other, I have to walk through them, and I twist my ankle.
There shouldn't be any that you have to walk
Every
through.
time I have to get in the pond, I have to climb over branches that are on the ground.
Wow.
And I have to get to the pond 2 times a week.
Why do you have to get in the pond for 2 times a week?
Because the ducks are jerks. Literally, I have been chasing ducks a lot. Now, this week I have not chased ducks, but I've chased ducks a lot. So, anyway, I do have the peas in. I'm hoping that they will not germinate until after this weekend's freeze. And then I'm going out this weekend to put radish seeds in and get radishes going. And I'm starting lettuce inside the transplant out there. Most of my direct sowing will happen later. And I have to decide which bed is going to be the beet bed, or where I'm going to grow beets. I'm not going to do just one bed probably, because I want to really have a different system for beets this year. Because every year, like, I have minor success with beets, but here's what I figured out about beets is it's actually better to seed them a little earlier than you're supposed to, and then reseed them if for some reason there's a frost. But I've had some issues with the ground. Again, the ground not being quite as ready as it should. I'm confident if I put beets in the garlic bed that they would do great in that bed, because the soil there is so nice after all the rabbit poop I put in there last year. So hopefully the other beds are equally nice. And if they're not, then I'm going to be thinking about that. I am working on getting a biochar generating system in place here. And he doesn't know what I'm doing about that right now. But I just figured out that we have a biochar kiln that is not together because we don't have a rivet gun and it has rivets.
I have the screws, but it's just not been on my priority
And there's screws,
list.
right? So and in order to do that, we have to start the fire, watch the fire, quench the fire, grind the biochar, inoculate the biochar, and put the biochar out, which probably will do that if sometimes. But because you stop drinking beer around fires, then you less likely to happen. And with everything going on, that's, it's an investment of 2 hours to 4 hours every time you do that. And that's fine. I realized we could buy a kiln that takes wood pellets that you don't have to grind once they're biochar, and you have to set a timer to check it to make sure you quench it at the right time. But you can make a little bit of biochar in an hour, not watching it because it's automated.
Okay.
And you don't have to grind it.
Okay.
So that, for me, I'm going to try that out and see if it works as a system so that at a minimum we can start adding biochar to the duck litter and the chicken litter. And then when that gets composted and put out, we have biochar integrated into the garden and into the swales.
Okay.
So we'll see how that goes. And then it's time to turn the AP system on again, which requires me watering it. Yeah. I've been talking about watering the AP system for how many weeks now?
I don't know.
2. Has it been watered yet?
No.
Because I have to take the hose from the other side of the house all the way over there. You guys, you can learn a lot about homesteading by when I say because I have to, and then explain how I set something up so it's not easy for me to do it or it's not accessible. What's that look on your face? That's a very long silence for a live stream.
Well, I mean, I could put a freeze-proof water hose over there, but it's going to require cutting a hole in the wall.
Yeah, we're not doing that.
Well, there's no freeze-proof water hose over there.
I know. But anyway, and the reason I need to water it before I set up the 2 beds is they will lower the level in the sump when I raise the level in the 2 wicking beds, and then the fish will be really sad with me. They will be really sad with me. Next up is holler neighbors and community. And guys, we're getting towards the end of the show. So if you have a question or something you want me to address, remember, just put the word question in all caps. I'll star it and work it into the show. We are seeking a homestead sitter for Self-Reliance Festival. I have an ask out to 1 person. We'll see if that goes. But we need somebody here on at least Saturday and Sunday. And probably Friday.
Yeah.
So, and that means you'll be taking care of sheep. You will be taking care of ducks and chickens. You will be taking care of goats, and you will be taking care of rabbits, and you will probably be taking care of other rabbits next door. Probably. So that's the deal. And we've always had pretty good luck with homestead sitters. So there's that. And then we have a homestead intern coming in April.
Yes.
We've never done this before.
No.
We don't know what we're doing, guys. I called, so I had a talk with him yesterday. He's somebody from our community who's going to be here anyway, and I could use help with the amount of work happening in April between Self-Reliance Festival happening 3 weeks later, my spring workshop, and then for almost the whole month of May, I'm on speaking tour. So getting things kind of nailed in April is helpful, and I probably could use a second intern in May. And he's going to live in the Glamper. So I talked to him about that and what that looks like. And then I was like, we've never done this before, so there's going to be a little bit of figuring it out. But the way I'm setting it up, and I'm sending this out to him, is this is what the expectation is. And in exchange for that expectation, this is what you get. So I'm trying to make it so it's not like we expect you to work 27 hours a day for no pay sort of thing.
Yeah.
And that if there is, so that when there's a clear communication on this is what you're doing, if it's not done, then we know. And if there is, if he wants to go take a class at tactical response, which I'm pretty sure he does, it's not like, wait, you were going to be here every single day that you said you were going to be here, because he's not. So I'm just trying to be really clear, and AJ is the one coming because he just said yay. And he was cool with that, but we're sort of feeling out this process. The reason we haven't done long-term interns to date, we've done like Homestead boot camp for a few days, but we haven't done long-term trades, is that what I have found in other aspects of trying to trade is, for example, when I have somebody living in my cabin and trade for fixing it up, what usually happens is they don't fix it up. I also don't get paid. It costs me money because they're using utilities, and there are bad feelings at the end of it. So what I learned is it's better to document what the expectations are and then go from there. I also think it will be that we need to be purposeful about documenting the experience. So AJ, I hope you're good with being on video. I know you are. But I think we should video some of it and just share what we learn as we go. Because if it goes well, we might do this from time to time throughout the year.
Yeah.
And just see if we can, kickstart some people on homesteading skills. The challenge being, like, it's hard work. So, there's that. And then I plan to have a Homestead Alliance meeting here on March, the second Saturday in March. So not March 3rd, but because my March 2nd, my choir is singing a gospel mass with 3 other choirs in Cookville. MasterSingersInc.com if you want tickets. And so I won't be here for that. And what I've determined is that a lot of times there are events on the first Saturday of the month. So I'm just moving to the second Saturday. So that one's just going to be a potluck, like bring something to share, and then a seed exchange. I'll have seeds out for people to take. If you want to bring seeds to exchange, you can, or seedlings if you already have them. So that's 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. I'm trying to make it so everybody can get back to their animals before dark on that. So we'll come. We'll do seed exchange and potluck and hang out. And if you want to see stuff around Homestead, you can. My homestead will not be in tip-top clean condition when you get here. That's not my intention. He's actually probably relieved I'm saying that because he knows what's under Taj Mahal right now. And the deal is we're still finishing construction projects, and I don't want to put all the stuff away that we're using for it and then pull it back out. Just know that we are doing construction and some things will be out. Next up, let's talk about infrastructure. Tell us about how the rabbitry is doing.
It's put together with the exception of one board that basically split in half. So the next thing I need to do is do a little bit of digging and pour a concrete footer that this is going to go on so that I don't end up with the same problem of the legs of the rabbitry sinking into the mud and or just rotting into nothing. So that's the next step, and then I will be able to pick the rabbitry up, set it on that, and put rabbits in it.
Cool. Other people solve that problem by not pouring a footer. They just get a big carport and put it under the carport.
Okay.
Yeah. I was just realizing that, I was like, why does Joel Salatin not have to pour footers on his? I'm like, oh, because it's in his open air barn.
Yeah.
Like he's got this whole row of cages, but they never get wet. And what happens when you have a rabbitry with its own built-in roof is the rain falls, and then, over time it gets squishy under there because you're adding a lot of nitrogen to the ground under your rabbitry. So I'm saying that because not everybody pours footers for a rabbitry, which sounds like you're over-engineering it.
Yeah, and I can only imagine the amount of flack that I would get from you if I tried to put the rabbitry under your carport.
It may not go under or Taj Mahal.
Which is about the only 2 roofs that we have available to put something
No, you'd have to build this is where the rabbitry is going. It's the barn we never built. Remember the barn we never built?
Yeah, and that was the plan, was to move the rabbitry up there.
If you have a barn, put your rabbitry in the barn, guys.
But since we didn't build that, now I'm pouring concrete footers.
Okay, there we go. This is what happens. It's actually less money and less effort to do the concrete footers at this hot minute than to build a barn.
Yeah.
So the barn may happen again. Tell us about the sheep hay sled. Dashing through the grass in a 1-horse open sled.
I am really hoping that this thing is not too heavy, because right now it's all fresh pressure treated stuff, so it hasn't completely dried out yet, but it is definitely heavy, and I decided not to let the perfect be the enemy of the good, and basically just built something that will get the hay off the ground and contain it, and I will modify it later to, further contain the hay and some kind of an internal.
Nutrients too.
Yeah, and there's also a separate, like, I made it longer than it needed to be for the hay, and then there's another, I don't know what it is, like a 20-inch section that I'm gonna put a couple of troughs in for minerals, salt blocks, stuff like that, and then they will be able to be pulled out and cleaned out, so forth and so on. So, speaking of 15-minute projects, before we went live, I got it on the trailer, over to the barn, and off the trailer, and then the next, like, normally if I was just gonna do that in one go, I would have disconnected the trailer, towed the thing up the hill, got it in place, come back down, reconnected the trailer, and come back over here with the trailer. But since I only had 15 minutes, I just took it over there, got it off the trailer, came back, parked the trailer, and started the live stream. And so when we get off of this, I'm gonna go back over and at least get it up the hill.
That actually might have been more efficient with your time
Maybe.
because you didn't have to add the disconnect and the reconnect over there. You went over, dumped it, came back, and then did something else.
Literally takes like 30 seconds to disconnect.
I know, but every minute you can save on the Homestead is a minute you get back.
Also, LT really wants attention.
Yeah, we've also got a new member of this live stream, LT for Little Tigger. He's super affectionate. Okay, and we already did the solar update. I've got a question here. We've had a super wet year and I have waterlogged pasture. Who would be the best resource to consult for solutions? The local seed store, AG extension office, or a permaculture consultant? I am 100% oriented towards permaculture consultants. So unless those other two places have people who understand how permaculture works, your permaculturist should start by looking at the shape of your land and your goals and look at the hydrology and figure out, after you figured out access, like where the water is going and what it's doing. So I would reach out that way personally, because what I've found is that the standard solutions, like you can get a lot of knowledge out of those other two sources, but the standard solutions don't always fit unusual properties. As homesteaders, we often end up getting unusual properties because they're cheaper. They're not ideal because the standard solutions don't work on them. And with that come unknown benefits from the ag department. Like they don't understand that that's actually a good thing, that problem that they thought was a problem. So that's where I would start. But I guess you can also go out and look at, why are your pastures waterlogged? Like, do you have a standing water problem because of the topography? Is your soil not right and you need to work on that? Like, see if you can start troubleshooting what's going on there as well. And then, is this a problem that will happen every year? Is this unusual thing every 10 years? And what do you do about it? Or is it something that you really need to deal with? So a permaculture consultant can really help you with that. We've got a number in the network. It depends what location you're in too, who to do. So if you want to put in the comments where you are, maybe some of the folks watching can tell you who you might be able to reach out to that's close to you. Because the other thing is, like, yeah, it's great to have Nick Ferguson. He's worth every penny. In fact, you should pay him probably twice what he's charging, but he's hard to schedule. So you might be waiting till next fall for him, unless he happens to be coming through your area and you're in North Central Texas or whatever, because he's going to be there in March. Then sometimes you can just get him. But other times you want, like, he's not available. And there are a lot of other permaculturists with great knowledge that you can work with. So, but definitely explain to them what your goals are, big picture, and that way they can help you come up with the best long-term solution for your goals, as well as come up with ideas you may not come up with because you're too close to the land. Because right now what you're feeling is the pain of a problem. And when you feel the pain of a problem, you're very motivated to find a solution. He's okay. So this is somebody in Vermont. Anybody know anybody up in the Northeast doing permaculture stuff? Where's Curtis Stone? He's in Canada?
I don't know.
No, who is it? It's that guy from Jack Spirko's interview. He's on Ben Falk. Ben Falk is up there.
Yeah.
So Ben Falk is in the Northeast somewhere. I don't remember where. But he's somebody where you could start and say, like, if you're not somebody who does this, do you know people who do this in this area? And start asking. And I think you will unravel options at that point. So anyway, Ben Falk, Faulk. Next up is finances. This is where we talk about all the loads of money that we make on the homestead. How much money did you make last week? None. Here's the good news, though. So John Willis sent me this picture of a poop chute that you can put under a rabbit cage, and it goes down into a 5-gallon bucket. And I showed it to him. I'm like, check this out. And he's like, well, I don't want to do that because blah, blah, blah. Like, we have to empty the buckets, and then we won't empty the buckets. And I'm setting up this whole system to do something different. And what was the other reason?
It's also like I'm setting it up so that you don't have to use buckets, which means you don't have to empty buckets on a timeline. But I also set it up so that it's adaptable so that you can put something like that in there.
Yep. So what he didn't know was going on, and this happens a lot when I ask questions, is he doesn't understand I had a whole conversation in my head about something. I was thinking about money, and I was thinking about a resource we create a lot of that we don't use all of. And that's rabbit poop. And this time of year, people are getting their beds set up and want to put some fertility in there, and you can put rabbit poop straight in your bed. And I was like, well, maybe we can start selling buckets of rabbit poop. And so when I saw that picture of a chute with a bucket, I was like, oh man, that's an instant rabbit poop collection system. And my issue with our rabbit poop when it's just under the cages without a collection system is that we get the nice round pieces of rabbit poop, and then further down what happens is they mesh together because they're peeing in there too, and you end up with rabbit poop cakes. And rabbit poop cakes, while I am perfectly fine with putting them in my garden, I'm like, I don't want to sell rabbit poop cakes to people because they're hard to work with. Like, you got to put gloves on and break them up or something, and that's not super fun. And a lot of people are pretty skeezed out by poop, even though on a homestead you use poop. But so he was like, yeah, but the pee's still going to get in there. I'm like, here's what I was thinking is you cut out a lip in the bucket and put hardware cloth down, and then it can kind of flow through when they pee, and you end up with a higher amount of rabbit pellets. And so what we decided to do was not spend $70 on this thing that was seen on Facebook, but rather when the rabbitry gets put on its final foundation, which is hopefully happening in the next week. Is it happening in the next week? Probably.
I'm at least starting on that this week, yes.
Yeah.
Like, I'm planning on starting on that probably tomorrow.
It's going to rain tomorrow?
It's not supposed to rain a lot tomorrow.
Okay. So what we can just do is put a bucket under one of the rabbit cages that has been modified with the hardware cloth to see how that works. And, it won't get all of the poop from all of the four corners of the cage into the bucket, and it will be kind of messy on the bucket where it hits the lip of the bucket. But we can see if the underlying principle works, and then we know if it's worth investing in making some sort of a chute system. And meanwhile, I need to see if people want to buy rabbit poop.
Yeah.
And I will tell you this, even if they don't want to buy rabbit poop, having at least one of those systems put up will be great for me, because I prefer, like, I'll take the 5-gallon bucket with loose pellets and then be like, just sort of scatter it in the row. That's way better than having to break up rabbit poop cakes with my hands. The second thing is we're actually getting eggs now. So pretty soon eggs are going to be for sale. I'm just going to put a sign out by the road.
Okay.
And then if anybody, and then I'm going to try to figure out an honor system we can set up down there with refrigeration. Okay. That's my plan, because I do not want to deliver eggs ever as long as I live.
Agreed.
So I'll probably later in the season, like after Memorial Day, put a flyer at the marina.
Yeah, if I'm delivering something, I better be getting paid a lot of money.
Yeah, except for that coffee to Chrissy.
I happen to be driving by there anyway, so that's an exception to the rule.
Yep. Anyway, so that's everything from the homestead this week, and I hope you enjoyed today's show. I'm gonna be live with John Bush in about half an hour, so I've got to go do my makeup again, cook breakfast, all of those things. I'm gonna cook some breakfast in the next half hour, and then hop on the show, get my studio set up back in there, and I'll be on with the Freedom Cell Network talking about cross-pollinating different groups to expand your community and some ideas on how to set your strategic plan for the group, but also for yourself, which totally relates to my book, My Three Things. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. If you like the show and want to support the work we're doing here, you can do it in two ways. One, get your coffee at hollowroast.com. Two, consider becoming a member. Just head on over to livingfreeintennessee.com to find out more. With that, guys, go out and make it a great week.